we will continue with the Christmas story. Today's story is called The Anonymous Benefactor. With a Cadillac, a maid, and a gardener, my family always had a Christmas with the best gifts from Santa's sleigh. My anticipation of opening gifts on Christmas Day was boundless, for I knew my mother was an uncontrolled shopper when it came to my whims. After opening one gift after another, I toted my new acquisitions up and down the street, so all the neighbors would know that Santa loved me best and that my parents were spoiling me to my complete satisfaction. From such a worldly background of material prosperity, it seemed only natural for me to fantasize that when I had children of my own, the established tradition of wealth and abundant giving at Christmas would continue. If that had been the case, I would not have had one memorable Christmas, just more of the same. It was in 1977, almost 20 years ago, that my Christmas took a strange twist. Circumstances had changed. I was no longer the little girl awaiting the parental handout, but was an adult attempting to make my own way in life. I was a graduate student in 1977, completing a doctoral degree and raising 3 small sons alone. Like several other graduate students, I had obtained university employment as a research writer for a professor. And like most of the students, I was struggling to meet my financial obligations. 5 days before Christmas, I realized that my mismanagement of funds would prevent much gift buying of any kind. It seemed unbearable to me. Cuddling my sons, I reluctantly explained my abhorrence of debt and the specter of our economic plight. My emotions surfaced as the children attempted to comfort me by nodding assuredly, "Don't worry. Santa Claus will give us gifts." Cautiously, I explained, "I think Santa Claus is also having a bad year." With certainty, my firstborn son, Brian, announced, "But on television his sleigh is still filled with toys. With 5 days left till Christmas, he'll have plenty for us." His younger brother Todd interjected, "Besides, Santa won't forget us. We've been good this year." As all 3 nodded in agreement, I did too. My sons had been good. They had found happiness and friendship in our family. We all were unusually close. Perhaps it was our circumstance. Yet, despite their goodness, they would soon be disappointed because neither Santa nor Mother would bring the desired presents on Christmas Day. That night I cried and pled with the Lord for relief, for a glimmer of hope that Christmas in our home would be better than I anticipated. My verbal prayers awakened the children. They seemed to intuitively know what was causing my unhappiness. "Don't worry about presents. It doesn't matter," said Brian. I knew it didn't matter on December 20th, but I knew it would be all important on December 25th. The next morning, I could not hide the despair and self-pity that had marred my face through the night. "What is wrong?" I was asked again and again at the university. My trite reply was nothing. Arriving home, I methodically pulled the mail from the mailbox as I entered the house. A curious, unstamped envelope caught my attention. "To a very, 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 very special lady" was typewritten on the envelope. I gazed at the envelope and wondered if it were meant for me. Hoping it was, I tore it open. To my surprise, I found several dollars inside, but not a note of explanation. "Come quickly," I beckoned the children. Together, we counted the money, examined the envelope, and expressed wonder at the anonymous gift. This was a direct answer to my prayer. There was enough money in the envelope to buy an extra gift for each child. I was stunned and amazed, and my joy and excitement of Christmas had returned. It was going to be a great Christmas day after all. It wouldn't be as lavish as those of my childhood, but it would be good enough. I was curious. Where had the money come from? Could it be from a neighbor, a friend, a classmate, or the bishop? Logical deduction led me first to near neighbors. As I attempted to thank them, each stammered and then confessed it wasn't me. Asking friends and classmates rendered similar comments. It must be the bishop, I decided. He denied being our benefactor, however, and assured us that he did not know who had been so kind. Curiosity mounted as nightfall approached. I read the envelope again. "To a very, 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 very special lady." This time I noticed that the E and L were misshapen letters produced by an old typewriter ribbon. I also observed that each dollar bill had been folded and unfolded many times, as if each one had been of infinite worth. My desire to uncover the identity of the anonymous donor grew. Soon that desire was coupled with the gnawing resolve to return the money. The misshapen letters and folded bills evidenced that the generous donor also had financial difficulties. I couldn't sleep that night. Again and again, I asked myself, who was it? I had the clues of the old typewriter ribbon and the folded money, but not the answer. I can't really describe how I finally knew who the benefactor was. But about 2 o'clock in the morning, I knew. I knew who had a broken typewriter and who needed to replace their ribbon and who carefully folded and unfolded money, checking each dollar bill. It was my 3 sons. With tears of love, I awoke the donors. Blurry-eyed, they asked, "What's wrong?" I replied, "Nothing's wrong. Everything is right. You gave me the money. You gave me all the money you possess." Opening the bedroom closet door, I pulled out 3 empty jars that once had contained their treasured fortune. They sat silent for several moments until my 9-year-old Brian turned to his younger brother Todd and punched him. "You told," he exclaimed. Attempting to fend off further blows, Todd yelled, "It wasn't me, it must have been John." Their 5-year-old brother immediately said, "It wasn't me," as both boys landed on him. In unison, they asked, "How did you know?" I had searched outside my home for the answer, but the answer was within. I'd seen generosity in all those around me, but had failed to recognize the generous hearts of my children. And now I more clearly knew why the Savior had said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not. For of such is the kingdom of heaven." My house, with all of its material flaws, was my heaven on earth, and my sons were my greatest treasure. Christmas 1977 was indeed a Merry Christmas worth remembering. God will bless you. We will continue with the Christmas story. Today's story is called A Different Kind of Christmas. Martha had tried to ignore the approach of Christmas. She would have kept it almost entirely out of her thoughts if Jed had not come eagerly into the cabin one day, stomping the snow from his cold feet as he said in an excited voice, "Martha, we're going to have a Christmas tree this year anyway. I spotted a cedar on that rise out south of the wheat field, over near the Norton's place. It's a scrubby thing, but it will do since we can't get a pine. Maybe Christmas will be a little different here, but it will still be the kind of Christmas we used to have," as she shook her head. Martha noticed that Daniel glanced quickly up from the corner where he was playing, patiently tying together some sticks with bits of string left over from the quilt she had tied a few days earlier. She drew Jed as far away from the boy as possible. "I don't want a tree," she said. "We won't be celebrating Christmas. Even a tree couldn't make it the kind of Christmas we used to have. Martha, we've got to do something for the boy at least. Children set such store by Christmas. Don't you think I know? All those years fixing things for Mabel and Stelly, I know all about the kids and Christmas." She stopped and drew a deep breath, glancing over to see that Daniel was occupied and not listening. "But I can't do those things for him. It would be like a knife in the heart, fixing a tree and baking cookies and making things for another woman's child when my own girls are back there on that prairie." "Martha, Martha," Jed said softly. "It's been almost a year and a half. That's over and Danny needs you. He needs a Christmas like he remembers." She turned her back to his pleading face. "I can't," she said. Jed touched her shoulder gently. "I know how hard it is for you, Martha. But think of the boy." He turned and went back out into the snowy weather. "Think of the boy." Why should she think of him when her own children, her 2 blue-eyed, golden-curled daughters, had been left beside the trail back there on that endless, empty prairie? The boy came to her not because she wanted him, but because she couldn't say no to Bishop back in Salt Lake City last April before they came to settle in this valley. Bishop Clay brought Daniel to her and Jed one day and said, "I want you to care for this lad. His mother died on the trek last summer and his pa passed away last week. He needs a good home." Jed had gripped the bishop's hand and with tears in his eyes thanked him. But Martha had turned away from the sight of the thin, ragged 6-year-old boy who stood before them not fast enough, however, to miss the sudden brief smile he flashed at her A smile that should have caught her heart and opened it wide. Her heart was closed, though, locked tightly around the memory of her two gentle little girls. She didn't want a noisy, rowdy boy hanging around, disturbing those memories, filling the cabin with a boy's loud games. Yet she had taken him because she felt she had no choice. Faced with the bishop's request. More of an order, really. And Jed's obvious joy, she couldn't refuse. He came with them out to this new valley west of the Salt Lake settlement, and had proved himself a great help to Jed despite his young age. Sometimes Martha felt pity for him, but she didn't love him. With Jed, it was different. He had accepted Daniel immediately as his own son and enjoyed having a boy with him. They had a special relationship. Daniel mentioned Christmas only once. One day it was too cold and snowy to play outside, and he had been humming softly to himself as he played in his corner. Suddenly he looked up at Martha and asked, "Can you sing, Aunt Martha?" Martha paused and straightened up from the table where she was kneading bread. She used to sing for her girls all the time. "No, I can't, Daniel," she said. "Not anymore. My mother used to sing a pretty song at Christmas," he said. "I wish I could remember it." On the day before Christmas, Jed went through the deep snow to do some chores for Brother Norton, who was ill. Daniel was alone outside most of the day, although he made several rather furtive trips in and out of the cabin. On one trip, he took the sticks he'd been tying together. Toward evening, Martha went out to the stable to milk Rosie, since Jed had not yet returned. As she approached, she saw there was light inside. Opening the door softly, she peered within. Daniel had lit the barn lantern, and with its glow, he knelt in the straw by Rosie's stall. In front of him were the sticks he had tied together, which Martha recognized now as a crude cradle. It held Stelly's rag doll, all wrapped up in the white shawl Martha kept in her trunk. Her first impulse was to rush in and snatch it, but she stopped because the scene was strangely beautiful in the soft light from the lantern. Rosie and the two sheep stood close by watching Daniel. He seemed to be addressing them when he spoke. "The shepherds came following the star," he was saying, "and they found the baby Jesus, who had been born in a stable." He paused for a moment, then went on. "And his mother loved him." Martha felt suddenly that she couldn't breathe. Another mother, another day, had loved her boy and had told him the beautiful story of the Christ child, with such love that he hadn't forgotten, young as he was, and she, Martha, had failed that mother. In the silence, she began to sing. "Silent night," she sang. "Holy night." "That's the one," he whispered. "That's the song that my mother used to sing to me." Martha ran forward, had gathered the boy into her arms. He responded immediately, clasping his arms tightly around her. "Danny," she said, sitting on the edge of Rosie's manger, "let's go in and get the cabin ready for Christmas. Maybe it isn't too late for Jed, for Pa to get that tree. It might be a little different kind of Christmas, but it will still be a little like the Christmases we used to know." "Do you mind it being different?" asked Daniel. "I mean with a boy instead of your girls." Martha wondered how long it would take her to make up to him for the hurt she had inflicted these many months. "No," she said. "After all, the baby Jesus was a boy." "That's right," he said wonderingly. She set him down on the floor and put her arm around his shoulders. "Merry Christmas," she said. "Merry Christmas, Danny." He looked up at her with a smile that did not fade quickly away this time,